Welcome back. Episode 63 of the Ground Up podcast. Shaky grounds for Keir Starmer. Basically a bit of a mini civil war going on in the Labour Party.
Keir Starmer looking like a lost puppy dog still falling apart in it.
We've been predicting it, but they're not going to last out the year.
You only want to bring a player off the pitch if you've got a good substitution to come back on.
This is really interesting. The FCA is proposing changes to the mortgage advice perimeter to allow for more AI tools to be used. And if I was a mortgage advisor right now, I'd be shitting myself a little bit.
Brokers should be worried, but I think there's a lot of jobs that should be worried over the next few years.
It's already starting to happen. So people coming out with law degrees, what do?
We're getting so many emails coming back from people using ChatGPT, and we're using ChatGPT back to them. So it's basically just computer talking to computer, being sent manually by one of the staff.
Strait of Hormuz has been threatened to shut by Iran. Around 20 million barrels of oil worth nearly $600 billion pass through the Strait of Hormuz every day. Could spike some more inflation.
Yeehaw!
Yeah, literally, have you ever got any naughty photos done?
There was his nudes back. Stu, it's always a good start to the day with you, man.
Ground up sound, ooh yeah, real estate deals. We lay them down, let's get those deals. Deals, making money, baby.
Welcome back. Episode 63 of the Ground Up podcast. In this episode, we have a solid docket of world news, things that are happening to the property market, things that are happening to finances, things that are happening to AI nudes. Watch out for your kids. Things like that. It's going crazy in the world. We're also prepping for wartime. Got my arrowheads from a new crossbow. Shit's going down. It's going to be a good episode, this one. We're going to be we're going to be swinging around a whole load of different topics. So let's see what happens. And for anyone that doesn't know who we are 4 property developers from the UK, and we operate at scale, running over £250 million worth of development sites. And every week we get around the mic and chat shop, talk shit, go crazy. So make sure you subscribe, and hopefully you like this kind of content. You've got Jack Jiggins over here with a new mustache, which is looking cool.
Yeah, I was going to say something really crude then. Got other features that marry up to that stereotype.
That's good, man.
So I'm going to see Zach Bryan tomorrow with my obviously American wife at British Summertime in Hyde Park. So I've been strategically, this mustache is 3 weeks, right? But this is like, I keep trimming it because I hate how itchy these. I don't know how people have beards. Like, right, you've got a bit of a beard, but Ben, my business partner, he goes a real thick one. I don't know how you guys do it. I have to clean shave. But anyway, so I've been growing this to disguise how much of a weirdo I'm going to be this weekend in business. Then come this evening or tomorrow morning, that's coming off. Mustache is staying just for a couple of days, and yeehaw!
Nice, mate. One of our guys is going down to that gig, Zach Bryan's gig. Lovely, mate. Enjoy.
Yeah, I think he is the top grossing artist in the world. Just crazy. A lot of people just haven't heard of him still.
Do you know what I was saying? Because one of our guys, a guy called Danny, who's I actually spoke about in the last episode, he's going down, and he was like, "Do you not know who Zach Bryan is?" And I was like, "I'll look up some of his songs," and I'm like, "Yeah, I've heard all his songs. Like, I've heard all his songs on country playlists and shit like that. So banging tunes. Enjoy, mate. Enjoy." We've also got Stuart Wythe over here, the slick back hair, morning, and Dorian Payne, who's not here right now because Dorian's running late. That's very unlike him. So we're concerned, but he should be here in 10, 20 minutes or not. And myself, Ryan Beaumont. So we're going to chat shit. Let's go. Before we jump into this stuff, though, I was just looking at the news this morning, and it's looking like shaky grounds for Keir Starmer. I don't know if you guys have seen this, but he's there's basically a bit of a mini civil war going on in the Labour Party with the backbenchers and the hardliners, and it's looking like we might be heading towards another government turmoil, and well, hopefully we'll see Labour ousted. They've still got the budget review and the whole autumn budget to issue pending now, really. It's a few months' time, and I think that could be the sort of nail in the coffin. But what do you guys think? What do you guys think's happening here? Because we've been predicting this, haven't we? That they're not going to last out the year.
I mean, obviously, I just woke up to watch Keir Starmer stand next to Trump last night at NATO, and him looking like a lost puppy dog, just trying to crave for some attention. It was a bit embarrassing. I mean, it's all falling apart, innit? It was all pretty much predicted. I think October is my bet. When I don't know, we're gonna have to someone's gonna have to crack. He's obviously losing so many seats to what's his name? Who you supporting? Can't think of his name. Reform, yeah. What's his name? Nigel, good old Nige.
Problem that we have, which is actually very similar to the US, is you only want to bring a player off the pitch if you've got a good substitution to come back on. If that good player on the pitch is shit, but the person coming on to replace them is shitter, it's difficult to justify that. So the US had this exact problem. You've got people going, I don't really like Trump, but he's better than, he's better than what we're currently dealing with Biden. And I think we've got currently something fairly simple. Obviously, reform is quite a controversial choice because the UK can't quickly go from Conservative to a Labour government, then to a Reform Party that quickly, in my opinion. I think it might take a little bit longer. So I think been a bit of stagnation, I reckon.
Yeah, it's definitely a bit booky. I mean, I just don't know how we got to a point where all leaders of government and these big institutions, and even CEOs, man, even some of the CEOs of the big companies in the UK, they're just fucking corporate mongs. They could read a budget sheet and they could talk law and regulation, but there's just no oomph, no gravitas, no character. Where's the character? Where's the billionaire character in the UK or the political leader in the UK outside of members in the Reform Party or Rupert Lowe? It just feels like we're just this dead, soulless country when it comes to leadership. So hopefully, a bit of a political uprising will. Nick Candy's great, yeah, but he's not been too like public facing for years, has he? And then he's now sort of coming into the fore.
It's very, very difficult to encourage billionaires to go into politics, because you're essentially putting all of your life's hard work into a place where you're in the public eye, you're being judged in every single thing you do. And Trump does it really well because he just doesn't care. But a lot of people do care. Nick Candy probably is thinking, do I want my kids to grow up? If you said to the general public, if you went up with a microphone and said, who is Nick Candy? I guarantee they'll be like, don't know. Does he know? Is he a guy from Willy Wonka chocolate factory? Like, he's not a very well-known public-eye person unless you're in property.
He's made his billions. He hasn't got to worry about trying to impress anyone.
It's not impressing anyone. It's
well, but politics is all political publicity. It's all popularity, isn't it? I mean, that's how you
The
win.
Americans, whenever you hear them talk about the UK and the kind of public-facing CEOs, executives, or politicians, they always say that the British journalism and our newspapers and things like that are just brutal compared to the US. In the US, it's a bit more like hunky-dory, and it does go a bit extreme left and right, but it's not like they don't go deep and in for your family and your kids and everything, expose everything in the same way. Whereas in the UK, they just tear people a new one, don't they? Like completely rip people to shreds. So people probably just don't want to do it. They don't want to expose their family to that, which is, I think, exactly right what Jack said. Yeah, but hopefully we'll get some political revolutions coming.
That's why you got no one half decent standing, because no one wants to fucking grow a backbone and get on with it.
It does amaze me when people just come out like study politics uni and want to do politics. I'm like, that is such a unique thing to be doing.
It is, and it's also wrong. You shouldn't. Like, I don't think kids should be like fucking aspiring to be politicians. Go and produce some shit in the real world, learn reality, and then go into politics as service later on in life, or at some point when you've at least got like 5-10 years under your belt in the private sector. Otherwise, you don't know what you're talking about, do you? If you've not actually gone and experienced shit. But we'll see. There's something's happening. Something's brewing in the country. It's fascinating. Like, this is probably what it felt like, early 20s, 30s, a century ago. Whereas like something's not right. Leadership's just fucked, and it's not just the parties, it's the whole system. It needs something new. And speaking of which, the whole Iran-Israel conflict's obviously crazy. We don't need to delve into the weeds there, but that made for some good Twitter entertainment. But this could be a tangible effect on us, and it seems to have de-escalated, but the Strait of Hormuz has been threatened to shut by Iran. And that is, for anyone that doesn't know where that is, it's between like the peninsula of Qatar and Dubai and Iran. So like within those, there's like this bay, like the sea comes in, and then you've got Saudi Arabia, Qatar, Dubai, Iran, all huge oil producers, and they all obviously load up and ship out from the Strait of Hormuz. And Iran is a bit of a backlash to America, bombing their nuclear plants. Said that they're going to close it. I'm not sure what authority they have to be able to do that, but it could disrupt over 20% of global oil flow, impacting international trade, oil prices, and major economies like China, India, and Japan. which are their allies in a way, more so than ours. So probably not the best move. But to give you some stats, around 20 million barrels of oil worth nearly $600 billion pass through the Strait of Hormuz every day, which is mad. That's a huge number. And China, India, and Japan heavily rely on oil from the Gulf region, facing increased production costs and potential inflation if the strait is blocked. Iran's closure could prompt other Gulf countries to develop alternative export routes, reducing dependency on the strait. So it's not necessarily that this directly affects us over here, because we're not that, doesn't seem like we're that reliant on the specific oil that comes from there, but obviously that prices into global markets. So if China or India do then start finding other alternatives, that could just bake up the price to God knows how much, maybe 130 to 170 pound or dollars per barrel, which obviously affects all of us and could spike some more inflation. Let's hope it don't happen and that the peace talks are kind of like, you know, stabilizing. But what do you guys think? Do you think there's anything here, or do you reckon it's all a bit of fear mongering?
Well, I think they've said, they come out and said they're not going to close it now. I think the war has calmed down. The 12-day war is settled. I mean, I can't believe America just thought they could just fly their bombers in and just use their Buster bombs to just blow up nuclear plants. I mean, or it was green critical. You know, the CIS obviously knew that they were getting close to having something built, and they just thought now was the time. But I mean, I don't know. I just follow it like everyone else on the news. But there was something I heard that was America planning this all along, because if we can't get oil, we get like 8% of oil now through the strait, because we don't get it from Russia. And if they block that, then we only have one alternative choice, which is to buy it from the States. And if they're going to open up all their drill baby drill, that's going to help their economy and sort of put us all, we're going to have to buy it from America. So is it a longer term political play? Fuck knows. But it's all very messy. It's all very disruptive at the moment, isn't it?
Yeah, I think you could, whenever it comes to sort of geopolitical stuff, there could always be so many ways we could misconstrue the conspiracy out of different incentives you can like find in any major decision that's made, because it's on such a big scale. Maybe there's something dodgy there with America, but Iran have been publicly saying for a long time, death to America, death to the West. And they have clearly been enriching uranium and built out these nuclear plants. So as far as I'm concerned, as long as those guys don't get nukes, the same guys who behead and strangle and fucking hang their own woman for showing their hair, I'd rather them didn't have nukes, even if it meant we're going a bit over the top of it. But there's just a certain point where self-preservation comes in, right? But let's hope it's all good and that there's no closing of the Hormuz Straits, because fuck having another stupid inflationary spike from another war. That would just be, it was such a ball ache when Putin invaded Ukraine. Selfish.
Just talking about America though, on positive news, have you heard about the IMF saying that Freddie Mac and Fannie Mae can start doing coin mortgages? They can start putting as pristine collateral.
Collateral, yeah.
Which will literally become Western society soon enough. So that was the only positive news of the week that I spied.
This is interesting. The idea that you can use your Bitcoin or crypto assets as leverage, a means of leverage or collateral for fiat loans in the real world to then get other sorts of assets. That opens up a whole different paradigm, doesn't it, for Bitcoin utility? So let's see what happens. Next, though, in planning news, all sorts of fun planning news. So planning approvals declined 7% in England despite rise in applications, which is just fucking typical, isn't it? So the decrease in planning approvals by 7% in England despite an increase in planning applications signals potential challenges in the development process. Do you guys have any good stats on planning?
I'm pretty sure it's about 850,000 applications per year from memory. So 7% is a lot. Like huge. Let me quickly do that.
50,000.
60,000, and let's just assume that that the average units per application is 2 or 3. That's our housing land supply that we're not hitting. So 7% drop from what was probably already not enough is an example of why the planning system's, well, not the planning system. I keep saying that and then correcting ourselves. The planning system might actually be okay. It's how it's funded, how it's managed.
Do you know why the 7% drop? Or was there any stats on what was the reason?
No, I didn't actually read into that article too much. I just thought it'd be good to.
I'd hazard a strong guess. I'd hazard that it's to do something along the lines with one of the assessments has failed the application, such as bats, newts, whatever. Ecology, maybe an element of heritage. More probably ecology and shit like that.
Well, do you know what, actually? I learned something about ecology this week, which could be quite useful for people. If you're in any nitrates areas where you need to buy credits, there are credit brokers and credit providers that are cheaper than Natural England rate. So Natural England credits, for at least where we are, I'm not sure if it's the same in like Portsmouth and other affected areas, They're like £2,700 a credit from Natural England, and there's other providers. And what's happened here is people from like doing farm conversions and change of use class and stuff, they get like awarded credits for doing that, and they can sell off those credits, auction off those credits, and other people can access those credits and broker them and shit. And we managed to find one other alternative that was selling for £2,400 a credit, which is quite a significant drop, over about 15% drop in price. But then there's now like another 3 or 4 we're going to go out to, and I reckon we can get it down sub £2,000 a credit based on
What does a credit get you?
conversations. So imagine it's like
credit go towards.
Imagine it's like a credit per apartment you want planning for.
Yeah, okay.
Sort of easy ratio.
The Labour government did announce easing of the nitrate issues that we're having, which is good. I think we've got something like 300,000 planning applications that are lodged as paused because of the nitrate issue.
I've done a fucking 9 apartment conversion, like super, like it's kind of straightforward. It's a bit of an extension out the back, and they charged me 37 grand, £37,000.
Would you have had to do a nitrate application if you didn't extend? If it was just within the 4 walls that you have?
Purely just by adding toilets. It's fucking mental. And this was a dance studio where there was like 20, 30 kids in there every day. So I'm like, the toilets would probably use more.
We convert a dance studio.
We pay about 11 grand a person a flat down in the south. I do in Rushmore and surrounding areas for the Sang and Sam and stuff. Yeah, the outdoor natural spaces, all that shit.
Yeah, that's actually different. That's not to do with so neutrality is also to do with water-like conditioning and yeah. I mean, it's all a load of fucking bullshit because we don't have any around. It depends what borough.
So I mean, every council calls it different things for different reasons. That's that's local. Where they could just have a table where everyone just knows what they got to pay per council and just make it really simple. Because they just cloak it with different names and for different reasons of why they want to charge developers more money per application. That's basically what it is.
I mean, what they should just do is whack up the prices and just have no fucking sang and neutrality. Just put the prices up and call it a day. And
they should just charge 10 grand for every apartment you build and 15 grand for every 2-bed apartment, and that's it. And you just pay that countrywide, and that money gets allocated to whatever the local.
There is a really good argument for that, isn't there? Where like it's got to, as in, it's not that that's the perfect solution, but compared to the convoluted bullshit we have now, just fucking increase the price, make it simple. It's a known quantity when we're going in, and you save us loads of time and headache. And that's kind of where developers are at. Like, just we don't even care about the money now. It's just the actual resource and time and effort involved. But they're not going to do it. They won't do it. They'll keep it as difficult as possible for as long as possible. Won't they?
Well, I think they need an economy and a business and a first class process as well. I think that if you're a developer and you've got a 200 unit scheme and you want to chuck money at it, you can take first class and it gets really it costs a lot, but it gets through promptly. Whereas if you're, Margaret, that are thinking about doing a loft conversion and a side extension, you can go, I'd rather save the money, just spend 350 quid with it, but I'll sit in economy and wait for it to get dealt with when it gets dealt with.
Yeah. It's an interesting point.
Pray for AI.
We always fucking get to planning. Right, we're moving on. But yeah, anyway, planning. Bastards. This is an interesting one. So this is actually really interesting because we spoke about this before as well. Bringing autonomy and AI to the mortgage and conveyancing process. So the risks of AI mortgage advice. The potential regulatory shifts towards AI mortgage advice could have far-reaching implications for accountability, consumer protection, and financial harm if not carefully managed. The FCA is proposing changes. So the FCA is the Financial Conduct Authority in the UK. For anyone who doesn't know, they're like the regulator for all things finance and money. So the FCA is proposing changes to the mortgage advice perimeter to allow for AI tools to offer guidance with triggering regulatory obligations, without triggering regulatory obligations, concerns about accountability, liability, and consumer harm loom large as technology outpaces regulation in the mortgage market. The parallels between AI mortgage advice and AI-guided driverless cars highlight the need for caution and clarity in regulatory frameworks, albeit death isn't necessarily on the cards when it comes to mortgages as opposed to driverless cars. But this is really interesting. If the FCA is proposing changes to mortgage advice to allow for more AI tools to be used, then if I was a mortgage advisor right now, I'd be shitting myself a little bit. I don't know what you guys think. What are you saying?
I think it's one of the roles that could easily, and this is actually a lot of mortgage advisors that I work with. that just take something and give it to you. They're packing your bags at Tesco's. I don't want that. I want someone advising. So you go to them, what's good in the market, what's bad, what am I looking out for? If I'm taking this product, what are the potential limitations that a layman wouldn't know? And it's the advisory companies that will do well, and the people that just shovel shit from A to B that will get completely replaced by AI. So they should be worried. And they've got a valid reason to be worried, because they're just a manual version of AI.
It's true, and also the government's fucked this up as well with, especially on the licensed brokering side, where they've brought in like price caps and consumer protection rights to stop mortgage advisors from, taking the piss on what products to allocate based on what proc fees they'll get and things like that. But the second they bring in price caps, it's like, well, now you're not incentivizing brokers to offer best service. Instead, you make it a volume game. And it becomes voluminous, where there's less care for client service and more to just churn numbers out the door. So they shouldn't have got involved in the way they have. It's very heavily regulated. The same thing they've done with the whole financial sector. Same with IFAs and all kinds of advice, where they just want to tread a very careful path now, because if they step off of it, it's like, oh, you get court time, oh, you'll get done for fraud, or you'll get done for this and that, or bad advice, or you get sued. So then it just becomes voluminous, and it just ruins diversity and competitiveness in that marketplace. So, and you're absolutely right. They are just passing info from one to another. In most part anyway. AI can probably just do that a lot better in some cases. I don't think for development finance, I think you still want a good broker for that for a while, because there's a bit more nuance. I don't know what you think there.
I totally agree with both of you. I think you can apply it to the same. I mean, even like accountants and stuff, you can get good advice from good accountants, or you get people who are just reactive and you make decisions without any advice, and then you have to sort of clean up after. So yeah, I think brokers should be worried, but I think there's a lot of jobs that should be worried over the next few years with AI.
To put it in a bit of context, I can't remember. I was watching that the Godfather of AI. If you watched it on the Diary of the CEO, the guy that got interviewed a few weeks ago. I was watching his interview with. I actually got really bored of like the 4-person interview that they did on AI, but I found that one really interesting. And he said the biggest impact on people is actually going to be look like a what do you call them, like a paralegal, like lawyer, basically someone in law that just reads and drafts documents, because AI does that so much more efficiently now. And to put that into context, from a bottom level, so we're doing internships with Reading University, and we advertised 3 roles: an accounts and legal person, a project manager, and a surveyor. And out of the 3 roles, we had 2 people apply for the surveying role, and we had 59 apply for the legal role. And I'm thinking to myself, if that many people, because they're obviously, there's obviously struggle in the market already, because they're going in at entry level, where a lawyer can just actually go, let me just dunk that document into AI and find out any potential nuances, and it's already starting to happen. So people coming out with law degrees, what do they do?
Do you know what? There's we're doing a bit of a legal thing right now, and our example is a good example where you want a good lawyer thinking strategy and things like that. But 99% of the time, you just don't need that. You don't need that level of advice. You can just, the things can be quite linear, or just understanding the parameters of your legal position, that rather than actually even just doing anything that's legal. It's just knowing what your position is to make better decisions. And a lot of that is just gone now. I don't know about you guys. I use ChatGPT for everything like that, where I'm like, where do I stand on this? And if I need the advice, then sure, get the corporate lawyer involved, or get a commercial lawyer involved, depending on what it is. But the commercial, that's all you need. You don't then need their paralegal to overlook something, because they can just use ChatGPT. And we've actually seen that happen already with a corporate lawyer. So yeah, I'd be worried if I was going into law right now. Fucking hell.
It's so funny, right? We're getting so many emails coming back from people using ChatGPT, and we're using ChatGPT back to them. So it's basically just computer talking to computer, being sent manually by one of the staff. You can read it because of the I think it's the semicolon that lists
The little things that
where they write it, and you can just clearly go, that's been written by ChatGPT. It's so funny. But yeah, it's mad. I've got an interview with 3 Filipinos on Tuesday next week, just trying to get our first VA, because I just don't want any more staff. As much as I love them, it's just painful. I mean, if I can just consolidate as much as possible and get everything outsourced, all the sort of back office stuff. But I don't know if they're going to use an element of AI as well, because it's all data entry and bits and bobs that.
As soon as I started getting up, this is probably now 8 months ago, I did a training session with everyone in our company on how to use AI, how to use ChatGPT effectively in your role. So I did an example of every single person's role, an example of, because if you think about it, if that person is then saving 20% of their time, you're getting 20% more of the workforce for free.
I've built it into my reply DNA now. So as soon as someone asks me a question, I'll ask them, what did ChatGPT say? Just basically the what ChatGPT, rather than just what would you do? It's now what would ChatGPT do? And just get them to constantly go back into to bed it in. I mean, it's all on their desktop now. It's the first thing. It's open on their screen everywhere. It has to be, because it's so much more efficient than using your brain. But then Charlotte said to me the other day, Amelie's never going to have to write an email or have to sit and think about the structure. You know, it's mad. And what's going to happen in the next 10, 15 years is when you have to think about writing the email, because it'll all be computer talking to computer.
Hey, look, I think I said this in one of the last episodes, but the new guy, Danny, we just hired, he's just straight out of college and hired him on aptitude. And I think you want the best staff bases are going to be the ones that have personality, who are able to talk with people, who've got good sales attributes. Those are the people, those are the assets you want. Like, gone are the days of a PhD and people who are like really good at behind a laptop and really good domain expertise. All of that's going to be AI, and it's the point of contact with the consumer. That point is going to become like the last bastion for humans to like compete on, and that'll be the distinguishing factor between service companies. So I think hiring on that kind of aptitude, people who are really good with people, who've got character, I think that's going to be like gold dust.
Have you seen like all of these AI videos that are coming out? I've seen them on Instagram where it's like interview style, and it's all obviously completely generated. And there's going to become a point where we don't actually know what's real and what's not. So I think we're going to massively swing into like authenticity. Like, for an example, all of the really crisp videos that we've all been trying to shoot in a marketing aspect, we're going to try and go back to like the Blair Witch projects, like feeling the moment. The people are the more important thing, because you can generate anything now.
I've literally just started doing that with Sky Lost, Jack. Is that, yes, you can get a 5-star review. Everyone's got hundreds of 5-star reviews now. Which ones are real or not, who knows? But I try and get our customers to write 6 or 7 paragraphs about their detail. And now I've actually started trying to capture. I ring them ahead and go, look, I'm just going to record a little bit of us having a catch up. I'm trying to walk through the door, walk into their loft, and just ask them what it's like to work with Sky Lost, because I want other customers to feel what that customer feels when they use us. And that is so hard to get on a video when it's not manufactured or people are faking it. And that's exactly it. It's already naturally, I'm already thinking, how do I actually get people to, in a natural environment, to tell others their emotion about what it's like to work with us? And it's difficult to do, and it looks a bit raw and a bit amateur, but actually it's more real, and people believe.
I think it depends. It's so the value proposition is in how you come across more so than how you filmed it. I think that's always that the winners are always the ones who just genuinely deliver good content, like good value, good content. Those that make it look good with the Lamborghini in the background and shit like that, they're never around long because they've got nothing to say, have they? And they run out of Lamborghinis to film. And you'll be sound, mate. You just keep that fucking charming smile going. I always reference used to. Whenever people ask me, like, how can I start on Instagram? Do I need to hire someone? And like, what editing software do I need? I'm like, go watch Stuart Wyeth. He just fucking has his iPhone out, films himself go around a site, and it's nice to watch. And you can keep up to date with his projects and stuff. It's so easy. Anyone can do it.
Yeah, cheers, mate. It's so embarrassing at the start, but it has made a massive difference, and it's good. The digital scrapbook, it is, if you just get over the fact that you've got to be on camera, then it allows you to open up doors like doing this, and just sort of capture your journey, and and capture current affairs. And I get to catch up with you boys every week, so yeah, it's well worth the time.
And one more AI.
And Dorian.
And Dorian, we missed Dorian. Dorian, can you fucking join us soon?
I had
One more AI point. Quick.
Hello.
Oh, hello.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Come in.
Give Daddy his hat back. Good.
Here's my hat back. He said he can't hear all my headphones, but hey, I go and have some.
Yeah, good job too, because there was a big F-bomb dropped as soon as you walked in by Rye.
What you like with swearing around your kids, Stu? Do you like?
We have consciously made a decision not to try and swear. One or two in moments of anger or frustration might come out, but she hasn't clocked what the words are yet. So yeah, long may it continue. I don't know. I just can't. I've got some friends who absolutely CUNT and FUCK in front of their kids all the time, and
I think that's probably more the environment though. Like I wouldn't really do that in an adult environment, really.
No, I know.
Bullishly. So
Yeah,
that's just them, surely.
I've definitely got a potty mouth, so if I had kids around me, I'd probably try not to, CUNT it and like harsh ones, but the odd fuck or shit's definitely gonna slip out. Like definitely.
You do change naturally. You just go into this different world where you just want to protect them emotionally, physically. You just want to make sure that they're not exposed to this horrible world that we can absorb ourselves in. I mean, oh my God, there was a video of this lady in Liverpool on social media. I don't know if you saw that trending last week. Oh man, it's just what's the drugs that come from America? The
Spice.
is it? No, it's not spice. The other
Fentanyl.
one, fentanyl. Yeah, she
Fentanyl
was
spice, yeah.
hit. She was absolutely walking down the street, fucking clucking like a dog and barking like a dog, clucking like a chicken. And she was like, and then all the comments were like hundreds of comments saying this woman is so such a lovely girl. She's just obviously taken a turn for the worse, and it's getting worse and worse and worse. And this stuff just rolls up on your feed if you're strolling through it. And obviously, someone's put up there is like laughing their head off at this woman who's in clearly a bad way. And I just don't want. And then you got all the porn and stuff. Fucking hell, that's all over the place. Try and protect them as much as you can, innit?
Spice and fentanyl stuff that's happening in America, like fucking hell, that stuff comes here. Yeah, there's a place here called Ferry Hill in Peterlee, and Spice ran through there a few years ago. And Spice will like literally you become a zombie, like it's a complete game changer for people. Not a good game changer.
People in despair,
Bad
people in despair who have they've got nothing and they just can't get ahead of anything. They turn to this shit because it's just a way out, and it just gets worse. And it's exactly.
But anyway, AI brokers. So look out.
I've got a quick question for you guys, which I think is an interesting question. Have you guys got in your family an AI safe word so that you all know a word if you're pushed? Because obviously AI is being used a lot to turn people against each other, and I've got your such and such in hostage, and then you sort of say, "What's the safe word?" Then, and you're in a position to combat the fakeness. Any safe words?
Yeah. So God, what's your safe word, Jack?
Clucking like a dog, like you just said, Stu.
In all honesty, mate, it's something I think about on quite a regular basis and just don't get around to chatting to the guys about because it's not there yet. But the second it's there, I'll be like, right, guys, fucking get around the table. Right, what are we saying? What's the safe word? Let's find what can no one guess?
Right, it's there, mate. You're just gonna bought yourself a crossbow. Well, I think we're there, mate. Well, how far does it have to go?
It doesn't even need to be anything guessable, does it? It's just one thing that amazes me is I went to a summer party on Sunday. This is what we do around Henley. And there was a magician there, and this magician was there last year, and he did this thing where he said, think up any Wikipedia page, any in the world, but it has to actually be an official page. And he said, pick one word from that Wikipedia page. So I picked something obvious like Henley-on-Thames and went down, and it's like 600 words underneath the description of Henley-on-Thames. And then I picked a word like difference. It's nothing that he'd be able to tell. But anyway, I've got it in my head. And then I've showed Kelly like the word, and then he's gone, begins with a D, doesn't it? I was like, how's he got that? How has he got that? And then he was like, the word is different. So I was like, there's no way. So he would just in seconds know my safe word just by being able to telepathically walk past me in Sainsbury's, nick my safe word.
Could AI do the same? Could AI do the same, mate?
So I'd applaud any listeners to get a safe word in with their family, because if you watch that, The Godfather of AI, he even talks about he's got split bank accounts in Canada because they're the only banks that didn't go under in 2008. He backs up all of his cloud stuff on a hard drive that's not Wi-Fi linked. So he basically is like isolated and in a drawer. Pretty interesting, like listening how he's obviously taken security of it.
Yeah, Nobel laureate as well now, isn't he?
But the individuality, authenticity thing we were talking about earlier, that all comes down to the blockchain and having some digital impression that can't be duplicated. And that's really why the Bitcoin network is quite powerful. But it does solve a lot of these problems that are gonna inevitably.
They need to do it, mate. I had a direct debate with Mo Gordat about this on Instagram DMs about 2 years ago. I said to him, do you not think you've got this naturally occurring phenomenon with the blockchain technology, and then you've got this more deliberate like technological push for artificial intelligence? One promotes scarcity, one promotes abundance. The two could regulate each other, and then you have a world where we can at least understand what's true, what's fake. And his whole thing was that crypto's a scam and blockchain's never going to be adopted by the masses. And I was like, I don't believe that. I can't believe that that's not the answer. Like,
but just to play devil's advocate with the blockchain, so what you're getting at is it's making an asset more secure in this environment that we live in. That's the exact justification of why hostage is going to be even worse, because they're not going to be able to get their hands on it. So they have to hostage. That's the whole point of the AI. They pretend they're hostaging, or they manipulate something so that they go, you need to do this.
But if the ID call has to come from a verified user, then you know it's not AI. So AI couldn't get hold of you. Do you know what I mean?
I mean, it happens today. Why don't we know that it's not a scam? You know, I've had people ring me up that are extremely convincing that say they're from my.
Yeah, but it's like a digital fingerprint. So you and I would be discussing. My fingerprint would recognise and validate your fingerprint, and we would then have a conversation. So but everyone in every transaction has an identifiable. You can't link your passport to it because there's nothing. You can't transfer data from peer to peer without it being duplicated or manipulated. But on the not the crypto, on the blockchain network, on the Bitcoin network, the nodes are all around the world. That's all decentralized totally. That's now 17 years old. Means that no one else can manipulate my fingerprint versus your fingerprint. So whenever we're talking, or wherever we have a Zoom call, or wherever we transact on the internet, my fingerprint will always validate your fingerprint, and that's it. And that's what the network is, not the coins or what transfers value. Because a Satoshi, 100 millionth of a Bitcoin, can take that data, which is what 0.00001 penny at the moment, and that's the value between me going, yep, that's validated, and that gets locked into the blockchain. And then you can have different layers. It's like the base layer is the internet, and then every layer can be built on top, but it all gets validated back down to the core database.
It was surely the person that built the maze knows how to get out.
Because the maze has been built by a protocol. The protocol is like the protocol is set, press play, and then it starts.
It's a naturally occurring
No one can
phenomenon.
manipulate
Yeah,
it.
it's very much a naturally occurring phenomenon.
Like fire. It's like saying, well, you can't.
Yeah. It was someone that ignited
burn
it.
houses down.
Yeah, someone ignited it, but then the fire spread, and now the fire is like as strong as the spread, and there's no like getting it back in.
Or it's like Wuhan, and someone created the virus, stuck it in a fucking bat, and all of a sudden you can't stop it because it just spreads. You just can't block it, and that's.
It's a good job that bat didn't, get hit by a bus in its first sort of like 100 meters.
Yeah, no, exactly. And there was times in 2013, 2016 where the government could have shut it down, and they missed their opportunity, and now it's way too big and it's way too uncontrollable. Trying to shut it down, and it just fucking went from there straight into Kazakhstan.
That it is honestly, that is the most fascinating modern story, and there'll be a really good documentary piece at some point of the Bitcoin rise and how it's gone through this like evil, like only for criminals thing to like no one's backing it, to now it's like this other thing, and now governments are mandating it, and it's becoming legal tender. It's just a mad story within a short period.
Legal tender.
Actually, start seeing it, you can't unsee it, and that's the other thing is that this thing's growing beyond. It's growing beyond comprehension, and once everyone starts believing in it, you don't go in on 1%, 2%, 3%. You get someone to put £1,000 on the blockchain, they start paying attention, they learn a little bit more, and before you know it, they're putting their whole life savings into it. And this happening on a global phenomenon, whether you're from Kenya, from India, or from Manhattan, everyone's pouring their wealth into it. I'm a little bit committed. I'm definitely over the chasm now. I would say I'm 100%. But now it's a security thing.
Cock on the blockchain. Yes, next topic. But just before we do, we've also started using AI now on this podcast. So the docket that's being created today, let's do a little show and tell. So AI now, every Wednesday, midday, it scrapes the internet for us. We had our AI guy build the automation for the pod, and it scrapes the internet, looks through all the keywords. It's got all the transcripts of every podcast we've ever done, and looks at all the topics that we know are interesting for us and for our guests, and also ranks them by social metrics, so that what's most relevant and most pressing at the current time. And then it drops in 30 news articles that will look like this, with the title, with the picture from an article, and then a breakdown of what or a quick summary of what the article is about, and then some interesting bullet points about that specific topic. And it's got the source file to the most highly rated news source article, so we can have a little look at that as well. And that then spits into 30 topics, just formatted like this in our branded colors and shit. And then we can pick through that and go, cool, what do we want to talk about? What's most relevant? Delete the rest and keep like 5 to 10 topics. All done at a click of a button now. We don't need to do anything else. Amazing. AI is next level. So what is this new topic here? So I don't know if you guys have seen this. How do we feel? This is a moral question. So UK MPs pass assisted dying bill, signalling shift in end-of-life debate. So British MPs are approving the assisted dying bill, which marks a significant change in the parliamentary discourse, focusing more on safeguards and less on moral objections, potentially leading to new end-of-life choices with stricter protections. So MPs delayed MPs displayed respect and thoughtfulness during the debate, emphasizing safeguards in the bill rather than philosophical arguments against assisted dying. The bill only applies to individuals with progressive illnesses likely to lead to death within 6 months, with stringent requirements for voluntary requests and criminal penalties for coercion. The proposed legislation introduces a choice with stronger safeguards compared to existing end-of-life decisions, aiming to protect vulnerable individuals from undue influence. More than 530,000 people die in England annually, with around 90% potentially benefiting from palliative care. 90% sounds crazy. Just to be clear as well, with palliative care, that doesn't mean they're all dying and are in a bad way. That just means that 90% of them are having side effects of illness or having some kind of pain and need that eased through palliative care. Not necessarily that 90% of that 530,000 are dying.
Palliative care is end of life care, right? So whether they've got a few days, few weeks, few months, that's when they go into.
Palliative care can also apply if you've broken your arm and you need some or you've got like an illness that you may recover from, but you still need help whilst you've got the pain.
Talk about palliative end of life care.
Yeah.
There's a very big difference between.
I think when you go into palliative care, right, you're end of life. It's end of life care.
I mean, it's basic. I mean, to summarize this is basically like semi-approving euthanasia or being able to say, right, I've had enough, pull the plug, and you can do that.
90%. So we're saying like 530,000 people dying. Wait, maybe I'm reading this wrong. More than 530,000 people die in England annually, with around 90% potentially benefiting from palliative care. So 90% of 530,000.
So it's basically saying that 90% resource could be saved if they could just go
Kill them. That's fucked, isn't it? That's a lot of people. Like you'd think that's a lot of
Same
people.
mind. It's not for people who are like for age of death. I think that's what it's like. If you've got terminal cancer and you're in a state of mind and you want to end it, and it's about giving people control at the end of their life. So if they feel like if I was mid-40s,
I completely agree. I just the sheer number of people this could affect is high.
yeah, but I think this is slightly. I think this is slightly this metric at the bottom. So 530,000 people die in England annually, with around 90% potentially benefiting from palliative care. Palliative care is typically when someone's non-responsive, but pretty much most people die non-responsive for a period of time. That period of time might be 2 minutes. That period of time might be 2 years. So it's not. I think that needs to be quantified with resources, time, rather than, because that percentage isn't accurate. It's like saying
53,000 people die basically through accidents, and 90% of people die from palliative, whether it's through cancer or old age or from a life critical illness.
Yeah, but I'm saying that palliative care could be 1 minute.
Yeah, no, absolutely.
So is it 90% of cases, 90%, but a better metric would be 90% of the total resource expenditure. Proportionally, what amount is that per case? Which is probably weighted on a lower ratio, right? So it's probably like 20-30%.
Yeah, I mean, it's probably 40% of that as an example, 500,000 people actually go into palliative care for a reasonable amount of time and use that resource, and it could have been handled differently.
What do you think, though? Yes or no answer. Do you think we should have assisted dying in the UK, just from a moral perspective? I'll happily say yes, we should.
Yeah, I think yes.
So which is funny, isn't it? Like, because it's become quite controversial, but it's like we all agree.
It's because people argue that it's suicide, and that's the difference. It's people say that where does categorizing suicide or abortion come into euthanasia? And they're three extremely different topics that have to have a lot of care and parameters discussed in each of the topics, but can't be coupled with them, and that's the main problem.
And regulatory reform to this kind of issue should be very stringent. It shouldn't be that we can pass it now and then they can just relax the rules later, like under non-parliamentary means. Like, it should always be that you want to relax them rules, you come back through the public again. Otherwise, you could end up having young people want to commit suicide or have, just, I don't know, could just become a slippery slope.
I think it's probably one of almost the most difficult things to legislise and process in the world. Like, at what point and how and when does someone... So, for an example, my grandfather had really bad, had dementia, unfortunately passed away in December, and you could kind of argue by the point of his death, there wasn't any of him there. But then, my mum didn't really care about that. She just loved seeing him, even if he was there or not, just with the hope that he's happy. So it's almost like, but then if you probably spoke to him in his good health, he'd probably be like, I wouldn't want to live like that. So then where do it's extremely difficult. It's probably the most gray area thing I think you can try and install there's it's so subjective. It's so emotion, the hardest decisions are when there's more emotion than logic, and this is a lot of it is pure emotion.
They'll need to make it clear that if someone is about to go into that state, that they have to sign some kind of waiver.
Well, the rules are there's two doctors that both agree that that person is in a state of mind to take it, and they've got to take it themselves. They've got to take the tablet or whatever they've got to do. So there's a clear line. I think they got that right. But if you're not, if you're in palliative care, you're past that point. So you just got to see out the life now because you've signed over your power of attorney to the doctors to.
But I think to make the decision to when you're in palliative care to go down the euthanasia end of life route, you have to be in sane mind before signing that
Yeah,
disclaimer.
exactly. It's more, I think, if you're in a sane, if you know you've got to be within 6 months of the end of life as well. I think that's the rules. So you've got to be 6 months. You know it's going to happen, and you want to take control of your last dignity in it, and just take the tablet and finish your life on your terms.
Yeah, we went to someone's birthday the other day as a family, and my mum was telling me that it was at a golf course, and my mum was telling me the last time she was at that golf course, she went there for a wedding of a couple. They're in like 30s, and the guy was basically terminally ill, and they had a wedding to celebrate his life and to get married, and then a week later he died. And when you think about examples like that, you just think, it's horrific. And then I also, remember a friend of mine, his dad's so like proud of like health. He just sort of said, if I ever start going the wrong way, just drop me off at the seaside. And he basically said, I'll just charge into the sea. So that a lot of people, it's proudness. A lot of people, it's worrying about the resource. A lot of people, it's just probably ending, pain or potential pain. But I suppose once you're palliative, I don't, who knows if you feel pain.
We've all had a loved one go through that, those last, sometimes be 6 months, sometimes be 3 years of just like debilitating almost humility for them, where they're in permanent care or they're in pain, they can't really move, and they just deteriorate into nothing. And there's some people who probably would rather that course, but I reckon, like if I think of my Nana situation or my Grampy's situation, I reckon certainly Grampy, who got confined to a wheelchair, and his wife having to look after him right until the point he got into care and like then sort of debilitating down. I'm sure in that scenario, people would opt to end it earlier to preserve dignity. And that is maybe a right we should have. But I think it can get coerced. And I think that's what's going to happen. They're going to bring this through. There's going to be these examples of coercion for people who want the estate a bit quicker. They want the inheritance a bit quicker. They want this and that, these naughty scenarios.
But the right isn't for the family to make the decision. It's the person who wants to die, and you've got to be in the same mind, and you've got to have two doctors that will confirm it. So that should put a block into.
As long as the doctors can't be corrupted, and as long as they don't relax the rules around it and shit, you just know what happens when this stuff, if it's not like there's no public pressure on it, it could become quite loose and a bit naughty. But we'll see. Hopefully not. In other news, though, this is mad. Speaking of coercion, I don't know if you guys saw this. So Facebook, Meta, offering $100 million sign-on bonuses to the staff at OpenAI, obviously for key engineers. So being an engineer right now in the AI space can earn you a good dime, particularly if you've shown your salts in other businesses already. So Meta's aggressive recruitment strategy, offering $100 million signing bonuses to OpenAI employees, highlights the intense competition for AI talent and the potential impact on both companies' innovation and development. Just a sign of the times, isn't it? That these big dick swingers of a company like Meta could just get 100 mil. It's kind of like what's happening to the Premier League here. If you follow football, and the Saudis just coming in offering like, multi-decker or centre £1 million salaries to our footballers, some bang average Prem footballers as well. It's just crazy the money that gets sloshed around.
You actually have to have an IQ over 10 though to work in AI rather than play football. Yeah, I mean paralegals. This is what you should be going towards. Bit of a change in scenery. I mean, it's crazy. There'll obviously be a huge contract attached to that. Like if you leave within 5 years, you say goodbye to that, or you got to repay it or something.
Yeah, all that sort of commitment shit. I just thought it was not even necessarily something for us to pick on. It's just a little sign of the times and where we're at. These big companies are getting desperate, and it just shows how it's another kind of it's like a confirmation of how impactful AI is right now and how impactful it's going to be. That a company like Meta bear in mind, billions to them, it's still a lot of money, but it's not that much money.
It's just showing you how valueless the money is. It's just like they might as well start pricing it in another currency because it's just 200, 300, 500. It doesn't matter because it's infinite. It's just all going to zero.
And they know that losing this race means losing everything. So they're like, right, put all the money in you can. We need to win AI.
It's not infinite, Stu, because Meta has a certain amount of value and liquid capital as a business, so it's not infinite. They could invest in other.
The opportunity that AI presents itself is infinite. You know, it's they can't afford to lose these people because if they go to someone else, they will win the fight. It's winner takes all effectively. The protocol they're building, there's no 2 or 3
Do you think in the AI market there'll be a winner takes all, like a monopoly?
No, I think there'll be like 10. I think there'll be you'll have different ones because you'll have ones that are like, you know, like the driverless car ones. Tesla's won that. Google seems to have won deep research with the with Gemini and DeepMind. And then you've got the open source stuff for developers like Cloud, which is from Meta, and there's a few others as well, Perplexity AI and other bits. There's different use cases for different AIs. I think there'll be a finance AI, there'll be a political and democratic AI, one that's there to help elevate democracy and make it more transparent and better and functional. There might be a planning AI. There'll be different ones siloed, I think, for security reasons, and just so that different individuals who are humans can be delegated as the masters of those different AIs to represent the people. So I think there'll be at least 10 major AIs in the Western world.
Basically describe one brain that's just going to take everything from the drive-in, that the same technology that creates the car will boil the kettle, that will do the planning application. It's all going to be integrated into one.
Come together to create one, or what you're saying is one company will own it all.
One company will own it all. Yeah, and that's why they're throwing out this sort of numbers, because it's just winner will take all.
I'll agree exactly with that. That it will be very competitive until the top, but that until the top might be 10 years away, might be 100 years away. It doesn't mean the impact of AI.
That's why they're paying £100 million for anyone and everyone who's got any power, because it is a race to the top, and then it's infinite, so you can pay what you like. Well, AI wins.
Next thing, coming back to our sector a little bit, I thought this was just an interesting one. So Berkeley Group, leadership reshuffle signals strategic shift. So Rob Perrins taking over as executive chair at Berkeley Group signifies a significant leadership change with potential implications for strategy, growth ambitions, and industry-wide delivery in the UK property sector. So Rob Perrins to become executive chair, while Richard Stern steps up as chief executive, signaling a shift in leadership at Berkeley Group. Berkeley Group reported £529 million pre-tax profit last year, with an improved operating margin, and plans to invest £5 billion into new sites and a build-to-rent platform. What's not said here is that £529 million is 5% down from the previous year. And Perrins emphasizes the importance of navigating cost inflation, regulatory changes, and ongoing process issues to deliver on growth ambitions and support the government's brownfield-led housing agenda. So Les anyway. But yeah, the build to rent obviously getting mentioned again, reshuffling of the team. They are down on 2024 to 2023, it would seem, by 5% on their pre-tax profit, but up on the margin. What do you guys think? Do you reckon this is the start of a shift we're seeing from these PLCs to start thinking of a whole different way to manage the business as like asset managers for long-term retention, with these build to rent swaths compared to the inventory game of like selling huge stocks of houses? Do you reckon we're seeing the start here of kind of like a bit more leadership competition in the PLCs, or it's just a change in management?
I think they've been listening to our podcast, mate, and they're taking a strategy out of our free books and building up their build-to-rent portfolio, because it's the only way to make money in the property industry, in my opinion.
Yeah, I mean, development's hard work in a world where it's becoming less affordable to be able to buy, and they can't go in and change, a lot. They either forgo their margin and reduce their prices, or they bring out their own lending entity that can help people buy, but they're still going to struggle in that capacity. So, build to rent is the way. His background is actually he's a chartered accountant, which is really interesting. His background is he was, built a building site or went through, the planning department or the construction department. He came from a financial background. It's really difficult to comment without knowing, until you've met these people that are running at that level and understand, and maybe there's an interview with him somewhere where you can get a little bit of a sprinkle of where his skill sets are at. But it's just a massive beast now to, that profit margin to be managing as a one person person at the top of the tree is crazy and difficult boots to fill, because Pidgley was, he was dialed down P&Ls and balance sheets every week on every site. So I feel like they are a very numbers driven business, so it makes sense whatever strategy they're doing.
Seems to be the way. I think as these PLCs start moving in that direction and become more public with it, I do think we're going to see different moves in the market, and they seem to be focused on brownfield as well. Berkeley Group delivering on brownfield ambitions. It's a great read. Anyone who wants to go have a read up on the Berkeley Group transition there and their forward-thinking plans. Build to rent, brownfield, working in lockstep with the government to deliver on housing. It's quirky time to be a property developer.
Threat to them as well, though, because obviously the biggest thing that's going to shock them is the cash flow and what they built their business on build to sell, and obviously that cash flow is going to deteriorate. And obviously, less they can work with the government and set our own bank up. But I mean, look at Octagon Homes. They pivoted into the Chancery Group, tried to go into more affordable housing. They lost their strategy, and what they stood for was to do quality, unique, bespoke, smaller developments, and it led them to hot water and then the liquidation. So it is a scary time when you change strategy on a big oil tanker like that.
That's a fucking oil tanker as well. Yeah. How long have they been around? How long's Berkeley Group been around now? 40 years?
Pidgley probably was just pushing 85, and he probably set it up. Yeah, I would have said probably 45, 50 years ago. 1976.
50 years. Mad. Well done. Mad. Anyway, yeah, we talk about it quite a bit on this podcast about sort of strategy and where things may be going from the macro side of the property sector, and it all seems to be going the same way. There's the money is in retention. Doesn't mean retention is all there is. Flipping will still work, and there's all sorts of strategies that will work, but at scale, it's about retention now. Costs are too high.
I will just add that in for an SME property developer in the south, like we are, so home counties. Build to rent doesn't work for us. HMOs work for us. But flats, houses doesn't work. It's just you end up not making any money on them, and we need to get rid of them.
Apartments for us could be worth like 80 grand. You guys can get a garage in fucking the home counties for 80 grand. That's mad, isn't it? But yeah, yield, baby.
We've got a flat that almost rents for like 35 grand a year.
It's mad, isn't it? One flat. That's like a HMO for us, 6-bed HMO. All right, next topic. This one's a bit fucking weird. So let's see where this goes. Meta faces legal battle over nudify apps. So Meta's legal action against Crush AI highlights the growing issue of AI-generated fake nude images and the need for stronger measures to protect users and prevent exploitation. So if we will just take a second, just on those implications alone, we can clearly see a litany of issues that come from this, where AI can just strip clothes off of any person, making them butt naked on the internet. Well, we just use our imagination for a quick moment, and you can tell like how bad this can get. And there's been issues with this before, but now obviously it's really good, so it's indistinguishable. And Meta has sued Crush AI to stop ads promoting nudify apps, but more than 10,000 ads have been found on Facebook and Instagram. Concerns raised by experts and organizations about the emotional toll on victims, including children, and the need for government intervention to ban these apps. Meta's efforts to combat the spread of nudify apps by sharing information with other tech companies and developing technology to identify rule-breaking ads. I mean, look, if you're stripping clothes off of children with some app and you're involved in that technology in any which way, that it might as well be child pornography. And they should be prosecuted accordingly, right? And if you're pedophilia, whatever you want to call it, it's in that realm of like just disgusting, disturbing behavior.
Do you know how to stop it? Sell it up on the blockchain. Everyone has a blockchain user. You put a bond up to advertise on any social media platform. You put 150,000 bond up or 100,000 bond up. You fucking break the rules, you lose your money, and it will stop all these fucking ads immediately.
Bonds is a good way of doing things, Bonds is a good way.
The only way to do it is if you set up an X account, it will stop all your bots. It will stop everything. You just stick up with $50, set up your account. If you get caught out as a thing, you lose your money. And it's the only way. But you can only do that on the blockchain. And guess what? There's a technology for that will help us with all this shit.
What is it, Stu?
I think it's called Bitcoin. When you see it, you just can every problem solvable. Half of the world's problems. You can't go dropping bombs in Iran with Bitcoin. You can't just make money up and go, we'll pay this in 20 years' time. Let's fucking go bomb them. You can't do that.
I think everything's breakable.
Well, so far so good.
EMPs maybe a big fucking EMP. But yeah, look, I'm with you. I'm with you, mate. Bitcoin all the way. The lower the price stays for now, the more we can acquire. It's happy days. But But yeah, nudify apps. I mean, like, it just imagine being a kid in school now. Like fucking hell, the shit you're having to deal with social media in general, then all this AI stuff, then just kids going nuts because they can't deal with all this intake of information. And now you don't even need to send nudes to, the boy in the other class. The boy in the other class can just take your fucking bikini photos, or not even bikini photos, any photos of you, and then can nudify you. And like, that's just like, that's a weird world to be in, man. That's a weird world. They're gonna have to figure out a clever way to regulate this shit. And I don't know how you do that because kids are nasty.
Do you think there's going to have to be some sort of protection of identification? Like, if you think about it, if you always wore a cap and sunglasses in public, you could never be bastardized against something that you didn't do. So it's almost like your visual, because of AI and the way that the photo, the media is of the world. Like back 30 years ago, you didn't have to worry about people taking a video or a photo of you, but now you do. I think there's going to become almost a bit of a shift in like almost people that make conscious efforts to hide their identity in public, because you don't know where that's going to then go to later on in life.
Here's a thought. I thought about this the other day. When I was 16, I went to Faliraki with my cousin and had a bit of a naughty time with this lovely young lady. And the old cameras used to click and take pictures and stuff. So I remember clicking and taking these pictures. And do you remember back in the day, you had to go get the films developed? Well, some of these naughty pictures behind the screen, developing them, whether I was allowed my pictures or not. And I was only young, and they took any naughty pictures off of you. Where'd they end up? And who made the decision? Who made the law to go?
Oh, did you have some taken off you?
CD? Yeah, literally. If you had got any naughty photos done, accidental little photos that you wanted to keep in your memory book, they would disappear, and they would say, "No, sorry, you can't have them." Well, where do they fucking go? Did they get burnt? And who was going through them, going, "Oh, you know."
Stu wants his photos back.
He wants his nudes back. Stu, it's always a good start to the day with you, man. Fucking hell, that is good.
Villaricki. I don't even know whether that is.
Oh, that's good. Yeah, but I mean, yeah. How does it make you feel though? Because like, none of us have had kids go through secondary school yet. But imagine your kids going through secondary school, like with this kind of technology out there. How do you, as a parent now, what do you say to your school and to like with these technologies coming out? What do you say? Do you go, look, there needs to be some measures here, like no phones in school, none. Don't want any phones in school at all? Or do you go, look, guys, can we just look out for each other a bit more? Or do you pull your kid out of school? Do you really vet the school and their ability to be able to moderate this kind of technology and how it influences the social fabric in a school? Where do you stand as a parent? Or do you just have to go, fuck it, world's the world, kids got to adapt, How do you draw the
We're
line?
in such a difficult environment, aren't we?
There's 1,000 answers to it,
Having kids because they don't believe the world that we're bringing them into is fair.
which is dangerous, that, isn't it? It's dangerous, that.
Yeah, I mean, that is the trouble. There's a lot of first world countries now are pushing for, like, the US have just launched a bill where if you have a baby, the baby gets set up an investment savings account with £1,000 in it, goes into the S&P. Yeah, they're now pushing incentives for people to have kids because there's not enough kids coming through. And then obviously, if you've got, like Stu said, if you've got this massive mammoth of a country that can sell oil everywhere, but people aren't being born there, it will naturally not have a big economy.
It's a problem. Like, if we don't have kids, there ain't humans. Like, there ain't going to be humans. Although we are about to hit immortality, so maybe all of us guys will live for a long time. But legit, if there's no kids, there's no replacement. And if there's that's why, immigration's getting, more and more rampant here. The immigration levels are insane, but they are effectively replacing what should be our own kids and our own kin.
Well, you've got other religions are having 6, 7, 8 kids versus, so we're on the decline. Other nationalities are, it will become a global takeover. But who knows when and where and what? It's so difficult with the kids thing because I think about it all the time. Like, do you ban phones until they're 14 and do they get behind the times? Like the fact that Emily had the iPad and she's like, oh, and the iPad at 3. I'm like, we just banned the iPad for like 3 weeks and she's a different child. So, but it's so easy just to go for convenience, stick that on for half an hour. I need to get a bath or I need to clean up or whatever. And they become so addicted so quickly. So it's like,
I think we have to sort ourselves out first, like I've said to the guys this weekend, we're just gonna have a bit of fun, maybe go camping and do some other shit. And I'm like, no phone. I'm just gonna have no phone for the weekend. And I want to try and start doing Sundays, kind of like the Sabbath. I think the Sabbath is a great thing about Judaism.
I agree. I completely agree. we've got our acquisitions guy that's actually leaving is Jewish, and I was absolutely fascinated by because I was just so blinkered, didn't really. I was the sort of person that I'll learn about what I need to know, like property, development, business, but working alongside him, they cut off all use of anything electronic, even electricity, um, on sort of Friday afternoon, and don't use it for 24 hours. And I'm like, well, what do you do? He's like, light a candle, play board games. And I was like, that sounds like an absolute amazing evening, but we get so transfixed on what we've got, and like imagine if you just did that once a week, how well connected and understood you'd be within your own family. It's because we're dashing around and doing this and not communicating, and I think I completely agree with you. I think it's amazing.
Isn't it mad that like only 25 years ago that used to be the normal, and now we're all craving it so much? Like it does sound amazing, right? And it's almost romanticizing the old days of how it used to live.
I think we need it. We need something to moderate this brain. This brain can't deal with all
The
this
thing is,
inbound.
as humans, we're just creative creatures that want to learn all the time, and the internet gives us like unlimited amount of resource to learn. So we absorb and consume as much as possible, and then it becomes so addictive that it's actually hard to just stop and zen out and just have a minute. I mean, this freshwater swimming is fucking brilliant, man. Yeah, I'm up, buzzing, ready to go, and I've done 35, 45 minutes. I can't wait for it to get colder, to be honest. But it's just at one with nature, mate. First thing in the morning when it's quiet and there's 10, 15, 20 people around. It is.
Do you take your wind up camera with you?
I don't, mate. No, I'm not allowed. I'm not allowed any cameras. They do
Walkthrough
skinny.
Whee! Loch
Oh,
Ness
mate.
monster might be found.
Mate, I would love to live near the sea, for that reason, where you just get up in the morning and just out into the sea. Like, I'd love that. Oh, be a nice feeling. Yeah, good on you, man.
This is like a mill pond. This is just total calm. All you can hear is the birds. You got no headphones. You're not going for a run listening to a podcast. No, when you go for a run, you're always tuned in. I'm always dialed into something if I'm in the gym or going for a run. But swimming, I mean, you can buy.
Have you tried raw dogging it? This is another thing about getting away from technology, yeah? Try and just go on a run with nothing. Like, no phone, nothing. And you just let listen to the world around you.
A run I can I can get on board with that. What I can't get on board with is going to the gym without headphones.
Yeah, that's probably a bit shit. Just hearing other people's weights drop and shit.
What we got here, Reeves bets on infrastructure spending to secure Labour's electoral future. Rachel Reeves takes a significant fiscal gamble on renewing Britain through infrastructure spending, aiming to convince voters of Labour's ability to deliver change amidst political tax increases and budget cuts in other departments. Reeves faced pressure to raise taxes and find more savings due to backlash against cuts and potential tax increases from local authorities, NHS and defence, and primary beneficiaries of spending increase, with other departments facing real-term cuts. Reeves emphasises the importance of investment in green energy, social housing and transport to kickstart growth and create jobs in deprived areas. I didn't hear any of that this week.
Yeah, I mean, my view is the first thing you do is tackle the cuts, because and when I say cuts, I actually don't mean cuts in budgeting. I mean efficiencies. Like our country, and I coincidentally shared it on my story this week, like how inefficiently we're building out HS2, and the cost of doing HS2 is astronomical. You're looking at comparative railway lines in different countries that are costing 20 million, 30 million per mile of railway, and we're spending 300 to 400 million per mile in railway, and that is planning. That is red tape. That is building a bat cave. Is all of this stuff. But anyway, it's very topical because the beauty of actually becoming more efficient with the spend is you don't have to go to the taxpayer and say you need to pay more now. So there's no change. You just have to be better at understanding that if you save money in a certain area with the same output of cost, but a better output in result, no one's life actually changes. It just changes for the better. So obviously we've seen it with the Doge, and Elon did, a huge absolute cut through, which is insane.
Do you not think that they don't have any incentive in saving money? Because they can print and borrow it so easily that why would you want to save money if it's a way of actually, it's another project?
They still have to answer to the bond market, so they can't borrow to infinity without the bond market going, well, hang on, how good's these rates now on your 10-year?
I mean, if you looked at that as a project from today, you'd never take it on, would you? You'd just be like, this is just way too expensive. And why is it so expensive? So what was the numbers on your spreadsheet, Jack? What you showed? You got it? You can bring up.
For the listeners, this is actually, I went down a bit of a rabbit hole of the HS2, which is a high-speed network that the UK's implementing from the north to London. It's supposed to be like a 225 mile an hour train that connects the north with the south, essentially. And it's been a project that's been ongoing for years, been rebudgeted like literally dozens of times, and is becoming a huge cost. And I wanted a bit of context around how much that cost compared with other things that other people are building around the world, to add a little bit of perspective and context. Now, to give you a bit of an indication, the proposal for HS2 is currently costing between 885 billion and 135 billion to build. And to put that in perspective, they believe that the Burj Khalifa, which was the tallest building at one point that was built in the desert, cost 1.5 billion pounds. So for some reason, this railway line is costing like 80 to 100x that cost in the UK. And it's just like, what is wrong? Why? What is wrong? And it's kind of like everything that we talk about in this podcast of like gripes and pains of planning and delays and red tape. This is amplifying that problem on a huge scale to show the context of how ridiculous this is. And it's very difficult for us to say how ridiculous this is, because we can't say, well, what does it cost to build a house in Tokyo or in California? That's very difficult to have that linear conversation because costs are different. But when you amplify these problems, this is the sort of stats that you get to. So on the screen, you can see here is compared to 4 other major high-speed railway lines that were built, the sizes and lengths of what was built and the cost to build them, and then the cost per mile to build them. So let me just pick out the one that was built in Beijing. So our railway line is 211 miles long. Theirs was 819 long. Ours is costing 85 to 135 billion. Theirs costed 35 billion. That's inflationary linked. They've actually adapted an inflationary measure to that. So their cost per mile is 43 million pounds. Ours is 400 to 600 million per mile. And there's not much in it, realistically.
400, 600 million for a mile of fucking, what's it, a bit of steel and some fucking sleeper timber. Like, I mean, obviously, there's more than that. There's more than that. But come on, 500 million.
Ryan, you aren't free this weekend to build me a railway line, are you? You don't have to wash your hands. I'll let you off that bit. That's why you're so cheap. I was actually thinking that one of the reasons this might be more expensive in the UK is if you look at, I don't know about I can't even pronounce Tokaido, or yeah, no, is that what it is? Just in
No. As in, if you're from Japan, you might go Tokaido. I don't know.
Oh, love it. But if you look at, for an example, California, there's so much more land. So you can fit 5 Englands in California state. So the sheer mass of it is way bigger. So to implement a 500-mile railway line means, I believe, that you probably won't have as many CPOs, which is compulsory purchase orders, which basically means if your house is in line with where we're going, the government will typically pay you 1.25% of the value of your house just to get you out so they can demolish it and build a railway line.
0.25%. 1.25 or 125%.
0.25 times multiplier, so 125%. Yeah, sorry.
Nicer. Getting fucked there, aren't you?
Yeah, you'd just say no. So I think the UK might have, I don't know if CPOs are factored in this cost. I can actually probably pull up the thread and ask.
That's worth knowing, because that would be a big amount, wouldn't it?
Well, you carry on chatting about this between you.
Right. So Musk thinks with his bore tunnel, he'll be able to dig from New York to the UK for 100 million a mile. And that's under the sea for 3,000 miles. His original claim was about 20 billion. And I just looked here to see how much it was for the Channel Tunnel, which actually, when it was built, real world tunnel costs today suggest trillions. Even the Channel Tunnel alone cost 21 billion in 1994. 21 billion. So it's still 20%.
You can swim that gap. That is
less than that.
Yeah, it's 38 miles long, the Channel Tunnel. It would be mad, wouldn't it? It's an hour. I think it's an hour door to door. What would it feel like to? Yeah, it'd go under the sea. Of course it would. Well, exactly. Would it be pressurized? Would it be pressurized under the earth, under the sea, or would it just be floating and then you got submarines knocking into it? I mean, it's insane. Like, it's got to be dug underneath the sea, I think, a bit like the tunnel.
Yeah, it has to go in soil. Yeah, for sure. I mean, why wouldn't they just put a tube in the sea? Is what I'm.
It knocked and blown up by a fucking. Wait, you could have a boat. Well, you could have a boat roll into it.
Yeah, it's gonna go lower than boat fucking undersides. Bloody hell.
Marine could knock into it. Torpedoes. It's too dangerous, mate. You've got to dig it under the sea and hide it. It's all the oil pipeline, all the pipelines and internet cables and stuff. They all sit on top of the sea.
They that 120 billion bollocks disaster of the HS2, all for essentially economic progress. But imagine they allocated that towards taking the UK and America within half an hour of each other on a quick public transport link. The net benefit for our economy would be massive.
This scheme here, that's quicker to get to New York than it would be to get to Leeds.
Yeah, yeah.
It's mad, isn't it? That's
So
how
the
this is going to land slow before technology.
Gents, I've got the stats on CPOs. They've estimated between 5 and 8 billion spent on land acquisition. So what's that? 5%. 5%. So that, yeah, the rest of it, and I've actually got a breakdown of what they are squandering the money on. Construction. So tracks, tunnels, bridges, viaducts. Next is stations and depots. I mean, these stations better be next level.
5 billion divided by 211 miles. That's 24 million pound a mile of what they've bought on CPOs. That seems fucking crazy.
Does it seem crazy? But if you go through a mile of like residential area though, that could be
Yeah. Okay. Well, yeah. Divide 24 million by,
Still, that's really expensive.
and 3/3 of it's in the north, and the prices aren't anywhere near.
They have to be shit at negotiating as well. So yeah, so stations and depots, rolling stock, so brackets, trains themselves, land acquisition, including compulsory purchase orders, voluntary purchase and compensation schemes. Next, here, this is a big one: environmental mitigation and protection.
or just the fraud and backhanders. That's all. Just rename that fraud and backhanders.
Yeah, you got to make sure there's probably a donation in there to transgenders. Next is project management and contingency funds. Yeah,
Obvious.
it's obvious.
It's written on the wall. We're gonna get some backlash for that.
Utilities, relocations, and infrastructure upgrades. I'd imagine that's actually quite a big cost because if you've got a big power line going through, you got to fuck around with that.
It's still crazy money. It's just eye-watering amounts of money for such a waste, and it takes so long. The time it takes. Like you're old by the time this stuff's working, and AI is going to be here by then, and none of us are going to need to transport around. It's just mental.
So it's 15 grand a meter is what they paid on that CPO.
15 grand a meter.
That's what they've negotiated.
That's interesting because you could then look at like all the areas affected, take an average of what the value per square meter is for all the areas affected, and then have they paid above the odds?
£147 a centimetre. I think they paid over the odds, mate.
Yeah, this sounds fucking nuts.
Anyway, last docket.
Right, so the rise of hyper-masculine influencers in the digital age. So this is something I've actually spoken about online quite a lot before. I think we've spoken about it a little bit here, but not necessarily using the terminology hyper-masculine. But look, the normalization of terms like alpha and high-value men online is leading to the radicalization of boys and the reinforcement of traditional gender loss, with implications for masculinity, self-improvement, and misogyny. Couple points here. Influencers like Andrew Tate and Ashton Hall are shaping young men's views on masculinity through hypermasculine content and self-improvement routines. Online spaces promoting hypermasculinity can attract vulnerable individuals facing challenges like anxiety, depression, and social isolation. The concept of being high value perpetuates a transactional view of relationships, reinforcing power dynamics and justifying the devaluation of women. What do you reckon, guys? I mean, Stu, you've spoken openly before about your sort of masculine traits in the past and things like that, and I know I've been a bit of a dogged person in the past as well. What you say? What do you think about this whole new trend of Lamborghini lifestyle? Got to be a jock, bro. You got to fucking fuck bitches. Like, what do you think of all that?
Well, I don't know, mate. I'm going on a bit of a journey myself, really. I'm valuing things so much differently to how I used to. I think you go for this little peak where you sort of want the world and you want everyone to feel like you're doing well and stuff, but actually no one actually gives a shit what you're up to. And if you worry your whole life about what people think of you, everyone's worried about their own journey and what other people think of them. No one's caring about what you're up to. So I think when you get to that point where you make decisions for you, if you want to buy a car, you buy a car and it makes you happy. As long as you don't buy something that you're trying to do to impress others who no one actually gives a shit or will actually detest you or think you're sad and pathetic for doing it, then that's up to you. But if you do it because you actually want to buy a Ferrari or a Lamborghini or whatever, or a nice Rolls Royce or Bentley. Do it if it makes you happy because you've worked hard for it. But I just think that life's so short. Who gives a shit? I mean, I think it's life's now for me. It's very much inward looking. It's like I'm making big strategy decisions for where me and the family want to be. And yeah, what will be will be. I mean, this stuff that we're doing, this social branding, this social presence stuff, we're doing this. We get together obviously once a week and do this podcast. It's good because all you're doing is reinforcing the fact you are trying to present who you are. And I think that the raw authentication of people is great. And there's loads of people I aspire and watch online now and think fair play. And I love their journey and I love watching what they do. It's quite American of us, really, because the UK idea, what I used to think the UK opinion of people was they'd always look for the worst in someone and they'd always try and put them down. And if they couldn't do what they were doing, they'd be jealous of them or try and slate them or whatever. And we are changing that way. I think people are starting to. I mean, I got loads of comments the other day. I put something up. What did I put up? And then someone was like, "No, you don't give bullshit. You try and say it as it is and stuff." And it's lovely to hear because no one actually says that an awful lot. And I got a lovely message from my mate Tom the other day. We only get together once every sort of 2-3 months, and he wrote this bloody lovely text to us after and said, like, he just loves being around us and the energy, and what I've accomplished is like, you know, even compared to he's very successful. Just bought himself a lovely aircraft, and he's put him and his family time and safety and going to travel Europe into effectively the Ferrari of the single pop aircraft, so we can get to so many more places. I'm off to the Isle of Man with him next week just for one night, just for us to spend some time together. And it's lovely to hear, but it takes a long time. And I think that's real value in life. That's what makes me go, it's worth trying to be a good person. And don't get me wrong, I've done a lot of shit and a lot of bad things in the past. And I'm not denying that. But, you know, with everyone, you've got to learn and enjoy the journey. And I think if you do it for you, you'll, at the end, only you will know if you've been a good person or not towards the end. And I think that trying to fluff it up and try and make yourself look like you're better than you are, or trying to lie or be deceitful, is just not the right way to live.
Completely agree. I've got a little book of quotes where if I hear someone say something or I think of something, I write it in it myself. So it's just a little tiny. It's like half the size of this. It's like that big. So you know what half the size is. And it's just got things. And sometimes I'll just be on a flight somewhere and I'll just write something in it to remind myself. And I read through the book, you know, every few weeks to remind myself of those poignant things that really moved me at that moment in time. And one of them to resonate with that point that you just said, Stuart, which is a phrase I came up with myself, but kind of a sprinkle of various other people's, is the only person truly watching you is yourself in 10 years' time. And it's all about that bravado and what you're doing today. Who gives a fuck? If you yourself in the future that gives a fuck about that, then, you know, you're on the right track. But it kind of, you can get easily distracted in modern day.
I think there was when I was growing up, I remember, like, when it came to the masculine stuff and how you treat women. One of the things this works differently depending on how good the female role models are around you when you're younger. But I always used to just live by the rule, I think passed down really from my dad, and role models around me, that I wouldn't do anything to a woman that I couldn't proudly speak to my mum about. If I couldn't speak to my mum about a given topic or something that I had done, and I would have to hide that from her through knowing that she would shame me, then that's not a good thing to do. And I think you can easily, when you're growing up, when you're younger and more influenceable, and you don't necessarily know what the right decisions are, you can think logically and go, what would mum and dad think? Would I be happy to do this? Would I have to change my inherent value system to justify some action that I think may be on the grey? Like, and I think we're losing gentlemen. There's this hyper masculinization going on of Lamborghini guys with their watches and their fucking all this such bollocks. They don't realize that they look like bellends. Like, people who are actually worth their salt look at those kind of people and go, "You're like a twat, mate. Like, you're like a twat." Like, it's fine if you want to own Lamborghini and stuff like that, but to go around bolstering that as the thing that you do and that represents you, and that's what you've got to offer your audience or offer the people around you, I just think is tragic. And there's not enough gentlemen left, like people who are just good, decent people, like, who are good to women, good to different races, just good to everything.
I would say that the way that life is portrayed on YouTube, you know, speaking from experience, we mutually know, you know, a character that gives that across online, and I actually think that character has extremely good morals for females and every part of life. So I think that quite often that profile or that stereotype is lent into to gain traction and boost and bolster their marketing, you know, aura. Whereas actually, you know, so what I'm getting at is, I wouldn't necessarily, for an example, people say, "What do you think of Andrew Tate?" I don't know. I've never spent, you know, a few days with him on a holiday. I don't know what he's actually like. He might be an alter ego online and causing a load of disrupt, but I actually don't know whether I think he's an idiot or not, and it's very difficult to judge someone.
Could you not have an objective view of his online presence about whether or not that is a good influence for young men trying to figure out what it means to be a man?
I think that we can, correct, judge his change and influence on other people. That's definitely something we can judge, which I suppose is an element of his character and what he's producing.
Through that lens, do you respect him?
No, I think he's got an agenda. I think that his monetizing agenda is probably right. I believe that the way that online should be treated is win-win situation. So if we put out that we're a development company based in in this location, and we work with investors, if investors find us and know, like, and trust us, and then we can create a win-win situation, that is not necessarily just my agenda, it's their agenda also. If you look at GDPR, you have to have a reason to communicate with people. The problem with social media and online is there's no reason to communicate with some of these people other than the fact that they just scroll, watch, and absorb and pay. And there's no like thought process. They're an easy target. It's like you said, the FCA is there monitoring finance market. Who the fuck's monitoring what's going in kids?
These police and
Well, the mum and dad, isn't it?
It should be mum and dad, correct?
but it's so hard to do because it's all
You ask every 10-year-old in the UK who Andrew Tate is, and they answer and they know who he is. You ask everyone in the UK who Rachel Reeves is, and they don't even have a fucking clue. So, yeah, I mean, it's difficult because I don't like judging books by its cover. I do judge people on their business endeavors if that's what Tate's doing, which I think he is. I think he's pushing an agenda, and essentially he's more concerned about monetizing and building a profile. It's key personal influence. If you're either liked or you're hated, and you shouldn't be in between. I feel like you're not going to get presence if you're in between.
I agree with everything you've said, but I do think there's nuance when you become Andrew Tate. Once you get to a level of fame and wealth where you've basically got all the money you needed, more than you could have dreamt of when you were starting out on that journey, it then becomes about influence and power. And like, how relevant can I be? Can I really be relevant? Can I get more headlines?
you can't police that. That's the problem. It's where you get to a point where you are too popular, and now you need to put regulation on them. They've got the thing is, he's making his money through people who probably can't afford to pay for. I don't know how he makes his money. I think he pays for courses, and people learn how to make money online.
You're a brokey. I got a university.
Yeah.
I grew up in Luton. I was a brokey myself.
He's from Luton. But just on that though, Stu, or was it Jack saying about like how they make their money, or how you can regulate it? Sorry, I don't think there should be regulation, but I think there should be more of us guys. There should be more people out there offering a perspective for parents to go, look, there are these characters there who are essentially just trying to indoctrinate your kids so that they can make money off them by pushing they hijack narratives. I just call Andrew Tate a narrative hijacker. He takes things that other smart people and people who are pushing a frontier somewhere, takes it, makes it extremist, makes it about his view, and goes, yeah, man, fucking hell, AI is so good because blah, 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 and it extends masculinity, and you should do this and that, and just buy my course, man, join my university. That's basically his whole thing and the gimmick of those sorts of people. So there needs to be people like us who are sort of arguing for the flip side of that and going, look, be careful of those characters. The same way the ground up network's fighting in like a business landscape where there's typically a lot of exploitation going on for young kids coming out of uni going, take a credit card out, mate, and pay for a 10, 20 grand course. And they just know that they can extort these kids, sell them a dream. You get all your money out of these deals. You do rent to rents and make loads of passive income, never get a real job. Like, they're pushing all these ideas. And there needs to be a force of people like us going, that's not real. You're not going to get wealthy off rent to rents. You're not going to fucking get all your money out of every deal. Like, you're going to lose your money at some point along the way. So work hard, learn, be studious. There's no free ride. There needs to be more of that, right? Is that not the only way we can fight it? Because regulation won't do it. Has to be people who are coming out the woodwork.
Well, I just think I personally think that going back to authenticity in life, I think that kids should be spending more time building dens in the woods and fucking around out on their bikes and doing the old school things that we used to do, because you weren't completely absorbed by brainwashing shit that you just sit in front of a computer and watch.
It's definitely, but men, I think we're talking more about hyper-masculinity, aren't we? Where kids get from like that 18 to 25 and they want to figure out who they are as an adult, and they're looking to Andrew Tate at the moment. Or Elon Musk. You know, Elon Musk's a good example in some ways, but he's not the best example of like, you know, a masculine trait. Yeah, need more gentlemen, don't we? Anyway, ladies and gentlemen, if you think we need more gentlemen, let us know in the comments. Let us know what you think. Anything else to add there, boys, or are we good? That's a good session, I think.
Yeah, it's covered lots to me. Love the new docket. Well done.
Yeah, I've got loads of dockets.
Loads of dockets now for AI.
Dorian next week. We'll see Dorian. He was going to try and get on with it, but he's been a busy boy last few weeks. So
Yeah,
Yeah,
you'll done it on the next pod. But big love for everyone who's listened. Many, many thanks. Make sure you share this episode. Helps us out if you share it with people you think might find it useful. Sharing's caring, and we'll see you next week. Subscribe.
Ground up sound. Ooh, yeah. Real estate